Today we're going to be taking a look at Biomutant. I've got quite a lot to say about this game, so let's get straight into it. Biomutant is a post-apocalyptic action RPG kung fu fable, set a long time after some sort of disaster on what I would assume to be Earth. To keep things simple and spoiler free, there is a tree of life which the story centres around, and it's pretty much up to you whether you want to save the tree, save the world, or destroy it and start again really. And to do that, you have to take down 4 bosses called World Eaters. That's the general idea. The game starts with this crazy character creation where you're able to create some kind of weasel, rat, badger, mouse, fox, hyena, otter kind of thing. The devs call it an anthropomorphic creature, so I think we'll stick with that. This lets you choose what you want your character to look like and what kind of stats you want your character to have. Whether you want to focus on key energy for psi abilities, putting focus into melee abilities to be a master of the blade, or focusing on weapons to be a gunslinging powerhouse. Whatever you choose though, you'll be able to implement the other types of disciplines later in the game, and that makes for some really interesting combat. So I wouldn't worry too much about making sure you've done the right character. Once you've finished creating your character, the game introduces you to the karma system called Aura, with 2 embodiments of each aura acting like the devil and angel on your shoulder, appearing briefly whenever aura affected decisions are made. It's pretty straightforward. Do good to get good and vice versa. Straight off the back of the game, you get a feel of how the combat system works and how fluid it really is. It has a kind of Devil May Cry feel to it, but due to all the abilities that can be unlocked, you'll find that it far surpasses that, as there are next to no combat restrictions in the game, creating a really fluid and diverse system of how you wish to take down your foes. Some abilities may be locked due to what kind of aura you have, but if you really like the look of certain things, then don't worry, because there's always ways to change that later in the game. Once the tutorial is out of the way, you get introduced to the 6 tribes, who are currently in conflict with what to do about the tree. At the very start, you get introduced to the first 2 tribes, and you can decide whether you want to go with a light aura playthrough or a dark aura playthrough. Light wanting to save the tree and unite the tribes, and dark wanting to take the tree down and just go for all out war basically. The way that the introduction to the game is structured means that you're able to control character development literally from the start of the game, meaning that it's very unlikely that 2 people will get exactly the same playthrough, which has been really hard to find over the past few years due to the hard structure of most big title games. Biomutant has some really goofy and odd elements to it which complements the game perfectly in my honest opinion. The game has its own gibberish language which very subtly changes between species, adding even more credit to that original title. The way things are named and explained kind of feels like Roald Dahl and Dr. Seuss sat down and wrote a script and then gave it to the narrator from Little Big Planet. Anything from the time before has been given a new name, with things like a microwave being renamed to a fry sparker, a piano renamed as a string plonk, and a phone being renamed to a ring dinger. I'll leave the rest out as there are too many to name and I really don't want to ruin it for you. I was a bit sceptical about the way they chose to name things at the beginning, but as I played more and more of the game and found more items from the time before, it really started to grow on me. But this comes with an issue, and that's the narrator. So essentially, the narrator is a thing called an automaton. It's a robotic cricket that acts as a guide telling you about the world as you go exploring, giving you insight about the time before and about what your purpose is within the game, and acting as a translator for all the languages of the species. Now, all these things individually work really well, but when they're back to back, it can get a little confusing in terms of context, and if I'm being honest, it's really quite annoying. It makes you want to skip some audio dialogue altogether. However, there is an option to tone down the narration consistency, or even change the language. A few people have suggested that changing the narration to Japanese makes the game a whole lot better, and is a more suitable theme to the game. There are also certain points within the game where the narrative dialogue is it's outright pointless, to be honest, and there are other points where it is suited perfectly, so I feel it's a matter of personal preference at the end of the day. The world of Biomutant is very self-guided. While there are a huge number of quests to sink your teeth into, I found myself getting sidetracked just a little bit too much, exploring areas, villages, trying to solve puzzles and getting all that sweet loot that the game has to offer. Once you get to an area, like a village, a checklist will appear so you know what all the secrets and loot are that you're going to be able to get. The game doesn't help you with this. It leaves finding all these things entirely up to you, and you can leave and come back whenever you want. Although it does give you a little assistance when there's high tier loot up for grabs. One of the cupboards or storage boxes where you can find loot will have a subtle red or yellow glow showing you where it is, but not making it too easy. Just to add, it's a lot easier to find these kind of things in the night than the day. There are 8 main biomes for you to wander around within Biomutant. You'll start off in the whereabouts where you begin the game, and the next 7 will be found as you progress through the story. Head north and you'll find yourself in the Surfy Plago, a very aqueous area with plenty of streams and rivers. Or head off northwest, you'll find yourself in the Dead Zone, which is pretty much a kind of a barren wasteland. Then you have the Fenaki Leaves, the Yerp Fields and the Canup Stones, which are kind of your aesthetically pleasing zones, lots of trees and green landscaping. Then you've got your swamp biome, the Mushy Mush, and last but not least, the Cluppy Dunes, which is a desert focused area. There are also 4 biodiversity areas, heat, cold, radiation and biohazard, that affect certain areas of the game. Once you encounter these zones for the first time, you'll get given a quest that allows you to procure a suit for complete protection in these areas, at the cost of a bad armor rating.
Looks snug. You make that work.
On the other hand though, if you can level up your resistances to anything over 50%, this should give you enough time to have a good enough look around. But if you want to grab everything, I would recommend clearing out the enemies, equipping the suit, which will give you more than enough time to strip that area down of all that good loot. Of course, if you have enough resistance points, you'll be able to look around without the need of a suit, but that's real endgame stuff. The customization and creation in this game is hands down insane. While it's fairly limiting at the beginning due to the lack of loot and resources for you to experiment with and upgrade your gear, once you've gone out and grabbed some stuff to mess around with, you really see how open and diverse it is. The layout kind of reminds me of the more recent Ghost Recon titles, specifically Wildlands and Breakpoint, but with the seemingly infinite number of customizations. Well, they say it's about 200 million, so that brings a really big Borderlands vibe to it. Merging these things together, it works surprisingly well, with the only real limitation being what kind of weapons you're crafting, which are broken down into one-handed, two-handed weapons with the additional option of slash and crush, and then for guns, you can get one-handed guns, rifles, automatic rifles and shotguns. Both ranged and melee weapons also have elemental damage modifiers, the same as the biodiversity areas, so heat, cold, radiation and biohazard, each presenting a really nice glow when the weapons are in use. While I love this idea, high tier weapons with elemental modifiers on them can prove just to be a little bit broken, in my opinion. It's nice to be able to take down enemies with ease, but at points it can really counteract any kind of challenge, especially when you throw in a few combos. Leveling and character building. Once again, another part of the game that is open-ended, unique and to be honest very well thought out. When you start the game, you see that there are already quite a few things that are unlocked for you, like most of the starting combos are unlocked for each weapon class, leaving you the super Wung Fu builders to unlock. I understand why they've left these things unlocked from the start, as due to the high volume of upgrades and options to help build that endgame character. I feel like leaving everything locked would have made it a little bit grindy, and at the later levels of the game, having you say, well, that would have been useful, or damn, I could have used that. But it doesn't. It functions well, working like a classic RPG. You get an upgrade point per level or through certain missions. And other upgrades like bio points and psi points are found throughout the world. What you do with them is entirely up to you though, but just be mindful that there isn't a respec option. So, just before we wrap up here, just wanted to give a huge shout out to Adamo for reaching out to me and putting his opinion forth with the game. So, for the pros of the game, he's put, it's a unique game, being a mutated animal who knows Kung Fu sounds insanely fun to play. The world looks beautiful. I haven't explored it a lot, but from my playthrough and also gameplay I've seen, the design and the colours just absolute pop. For the cons, he's put, as much as I enjoyed the different customisations that is muted with the different animals, it's lackluster due to the stats not changing that much. The class selection too also makes very little difference. The game gives you too much at the start. The tutorial, when learning controls and combat, you find out that when you're free to explore the world and are unlocking skills and certain moves for combat or even weapons, you have 4 out of 5 skills already unlocked, which doesn't make me want to play or go out of my way to do side quests and level up and feel stronger. The narration, for the love of God, stop with the narration every 2 goddamn seconds. I understand the tutorial, but even after that you're constantly hit with them. Along with this, the dialogue settings are extremely poor. When I'm actually listening to what the characters are saying, the dialogue and also responses are the same. This was only within an hour and I'm already getting repetitive dialogue. It doesn't give me a great vibe. And his summary. The idea of Biomutant is fantastic. I wasn't sure what the game would be when seeing the announcement trailers, but I heard RPG and expected something along the lines of Horizon. Unfortunately, it doesn't come close to that. For what the small team has accomplished, not only in size and also with COVID, is very well done, but I cannot recommend this game, especially at a AAA price point. It just isn't there. My final summary. It's a unique, open-ended and, to be honest, extremely diverse Kung Fu RPG, which hasn't really been done before. Having played this game for a fair amount of hours, it's one of the most unique games I've played in a long time. Not to mention all the weird, wonderful armour and weapons and dialogue. For anyone that isn't enjoying the game at the start, just stick with it. I promise it will get better. The start of the game really doesn't leave a good impression for what you're about to experience. Now, while the game does have some weak points like the dialogue and in certain points constant barragement of narration, which can be changed, but you shouldn't need to do that with a AAA title, and a little disbalance when it comes to combat, I would say, in my opinion, get this game definitely. It's always hard to justify AAA title prices, especially with next gen, so if you are a little apprehensive about spending £54 on a game, I really understand that and I do sympathise with you. But you'd be stupid, in my opinion, you'd be silly not to get this game when it comes out on sale. Now, if you really disagree with this review, please let me know, whether it's in the comments on one of our socials or even on our community Discord. I would love to know your opinions. For me, it was a pleasure reviewing this game. Once again, I've been Russell from Adamo, and have a fantastic day.